What's going on, everyone? So now that the Kevin Durant saga is officially over, the Spurs can kind of recalibrate and get back to kind of picking that next step, that next direction, right? And obviously, it would have been great to have Kevin Durant. Would have been great to add him to this roster. I do think that he would have done wonders for Victor Wembanyama. I do think that he would have raised the ceiling for this team. To what extent, that I don't know. I mean, I talked very heavily how I didn't think Kevin Durant by himself raised them enough to true contention status to where they're one of the 3 to 5 best teams in all of basketball. But I did think that there was a path and a version of this where they're potentially in the conference finals, something like that, kind of get the dominoes to fall your way a little bit. You never know what'll happen. Right? Same thing with the Houston Rockets. I don't know how much better this makes them. It definitely makes them better, but does it make them, a top contending team? It definitely helps them close, gives them that consistent score, gives them that go-to guy, but he's still going to have to do a lot of work. Where even on a team like the Spurs, he wouldn't have had to work so hard, right? He could have had a bad night. Spurs still go get you 120 plus. Right? Houston, if he has a bad night offensively, they're going to really struggle. Right? So all those things I think are factors with this. But again, done, put in the rear view, move forward. What's the next step? What do the Spurs do from here? Well, the obvious answer is you stay the course. Got a nice young core. You're adding to that young core with Dylan Harper, most likely with the number 2 pick, as well as the number 14th pick. I would like to see if you can trade and package the 14th pick to get kind of a more ready now player, get somebody that could help. You still have a 28-year-old Darren Fox, right? Yes, you got a bunch of young players and a bunch of young talent, but you don't go trade for a 28-year-old all-star point guard to not try to expedite this slightly. I'm not saying that, again, you have to go crazy and you're trading Castle and Harper and all this other stuff. No, you can wait for that right move. Don't jump the gun. Be patient. Let things kind of grow and develop naturally. But, some of the excess you could look to maybe convert into better ready now players, right? Even if it's just something like a Cam Johnson, right? Just guy that came to mind with the Nets. Can you maybe turn the 14th pick and, some of these contracts into a Cam Johnson? Right? What do you do with Devin Vassell? Do you stick with Devin Vassell? Do you trade Devin Vassell? Where do you trade him to, right? That's a big question. What happens with Devin Vassell? Right? That deserves a video in and of itself. But I look at this situation with the San Antonio Spurs, and I think the best course of action is to just stay the path that you're on right now and wait for those opportunistic moments. You have that with Darren Fox, right? That was an opportunistic moment. Spurs were active trying to get that all-star caliber point guard. We're trying to find that guy and didn't have any success. Right? They were trying to get a Trae Young, a Darius Garland, a De'Aaron Fox, guys like that. Had no success. And you might have had to overpay at that point, right? But they stayed patient, stayed the course, weren't able to get anybody done. Draft Stephon Castle. It's the original intention was he's going to be the guy. But then as you progressed into the season, lo and behold, boom, De'Aaron Fox becomes an option. So you go and you make that trade. And you made that trade for essentially pennies on the dollar. And so to me, again, it's about that. Stick to the script. Stay the plan. Don't veer off. I'll never have a problem with teams and organizations taking chances and taking risks. There's a lot of teams that are totally fine and comfortable with just never being good, never doing anything, just selling tickets and being mediocre, right? So anytime a team at least makes an attempt, there's always a level of respect. There's always a level of hey, at least you try. Even Phoenix, right? Phoenix was a total disaster and debacle. And in all honesty, they went too far, right? They already had the blueprint. They were already set to win and maybe even have won a championship. But they decided to kind of, new owner syndrome with Matt Ishbia, decided to come in and really kind of overdo it. Right? That's the problem. You never want to overdo it. But I still have a level of respect for the Suns and Matt Ishbia more than ever because, again, it's at least they tried. Again, there are teams that are fine with never trying. At least the Suns tried. Didn't work out. It failed. turned out to be a disaster, really, but still, at least they made the attempt, and they didn't wait around and keep going like, we did. Like, no, at least they're trying to kind of see if they can course correct a little bit. Again, you gotta at least tip your cap to a team like that because they're making the effort. But so with the Spurs, I'm fine with them, taking a little risk in here, but calculated risks, right? I thought the Suns going and getting Bradley Beal wasn't a calculated risk. It was just like, let's go get the names on the back of the jerseys rather than, the proper trade in action, right? So for me with the Spurs, I want to see them, again, proper analysis of, situation of this team and whatnot. And look, that doesn't mean something happens this offseason. Doesn't mean something happens at the trade deadline. But within the next year or so, I'd like to see something move. It's not like these guys are going to lose value. It's not like because you draft Dylan Harper now, no one wants him. Like, Spurs draft him, it's contaminated, right? Like, now we don't want to touch him. Like, no, of course, teams will still line up to go get Dylan Harper. You could argue that he'd have even more value because now he's a tradable contract that you could then go trade to match salaries and all that other stuff, or get another player back that you wouldn't have been able to get otherwise because a pick doesn't have the contractual value. So things like that, I think, could play to the benefit of the Spurs. The other side of things is they go move on to that next star. There was a lot of talks about them looking to add a Giannis or a Jaylen Brown if they missed out on Kevin Durant. Welp, they missed out on Kevin Durant. So now we are here where it's like, is that what they're going to do? There were reports that the Boston Celtics have received, some kind of blowaway offers for a Jaylen Brown and a Derek White. Could one of those offers have been from the Spurs? And what would that offer have looked like? Would they give up the number 2 pick for, Jaylen Brown? Maybe, potentially, right? Like, he is young enough to kind of plug in and have Jaylen Brown with Darren Fox and Victor Wembanyama, especially if you can keep a Stephon Castle. Because there are some questions and concerns with Dylan Harper, right? You have Devin Vassell still, you have Stephon Castle, you have Victor Wembanyama, De'Aaron Fox, Victor Wembanyama being the guy, kind of takes away from that too. But point is, you have several guards already that he's going to be, third, fourth guard on this team. And it's just, is he going to get the proper opportunity and development? Like, all of these things are things that Spurs are going to have to take into account. So, if you can get a Jaylen Brown who would be a better natural fit to this team that can slot in immediately to the 3, maybe there is some sense to that. Maybe there is some sense to be made with that, and you can do something along those lines. But no, look, if you're the Spurs, again, it's I think you stay the course. If we don't even know if Giannis is ever going to become available. If he does become available, then yeah, take a shot at him. Right? He's one of the few guys in the league that it would be understandable to kind of go all in for. Right? But outside of that, again, even like a Jaylen Brown, not my favorite. I wouldn't hate it if it happened. I'd be stoked, but it's not my favorite move. However, if again, it's about what's the cost. If you can get him at a reasonable cost, then sure, sign me up. Right? But if it's something where you're selling the farm in order to acquire him, I just think your time and resources are better spent elsewhere. Right? So again, stay the course. Don't let things get too carried away. You don't need to rush the process. Trust the process. Let things naturally progress and develop. See where you are at the trade deadline. You might be looking at the trade deadline like, man, maybe we are Dylan, a Dylan Harper trade or a Giannis or Jaylen Brown trade away from real contention. Maybe Wemby has taken those strides and De'Aaron Fox is great. It's like, man, if we add another star to this team, we're there. So again, trust the process. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass a question to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.